Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm out here just working in the different garden beds and, tidying and doing some maintenance here with the weed whacker. And I actually wanted to do a video, oddly, on my least favorite garden, the one I'm most annoyed with, because I think it's interesting. There's always work to be done in a garden. It's never a done thing. And I have lots of feelings and ideas and frustrations and motivation behind getting this barn garden to be the way I want it to be. It is far from the vision that I have. And I just want to share with you some of the thoughts here because I think it's actually really fun to make fun of plants that aren't doing what you want them to do. And you're like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And all the learnings that come with, working with different plants, trying different things out, trial and error. And I think it's actually really fun to learn. Not everything should be perfect. Sometimes things aren't perfect. And just learning to be okay with it not being perfect, but then using that as inspiration to figure out, okay, so what can we do? What should we do? How do I want to take this forward to get to that next level of what I'm trying to achieve? First, an introduction. Little Miss Allie Doodle, our three-legged Labradoodle, she would like to show you, the barn garden. So, in case you haven't seen this before, I've done just a few videos on it in the past. This is what I call the barn garden. It does wrap around to the front of our pole shed here, which we affectionately call the barn. And there's lots of stuff going on here. It's kind of a hot mess. It is beautiful, I will say, especially as I'm filming it here and just taking a mental step back. I do think it's beautiful, right? And this didn't exist when we bought the place 4 years ago. It was just a pile of weeds that went actually as tall as the windows. So we're really proud of how, we've really elevated it, cleaned it up, started to make a scalloped bed here. I actually have a different video on my YouTube channel here about how I created that bed. If you're interested, go check it out. I'll link it below. And I'm happy with how it started, but it is certainly an in progress, sort of a hodgepodge at this point, and it's not achieving the vision that I want yet. And that's because I haven't been able to get to everything, and things take time, and you dabble and you experiment and try different ideas, and some fail and some stick. We are in Minnesota Zone 4B. This is my most harsh sun garden, meaning these plants don't get a break. So whatever I plant here has to be able to tolerate incredible heat, scorching situations, because it doesn't get a break. There is no shade. So what's fun about that is it is a fun challenge to make sure whatever I put in here is tough enough to withstand the elements. So this year, what I did is put a bunch of annuals in. So this chunk here, all of the white and red, not the pink here, but all this stuff is annuals from seed, and a couple petunia sets that I got at like Walmart, and I plugged them in, and just wanted to have something to fill it in with some white and red. And they're pretty. I am proud of these zinnias. I did actually start them inside in pots. I would not do that again. They really do well if you just throw the seeds in the ground as soon as you can in the spring, and that would be much less effort. But the cool thing about giant zinnias is they get enormous. I mean, these are 3 and 4 feet tall, so they're beautiful. But my thing with these, and why I'm not going to do it next year, I'm learning that while I think white is pretty, white flowers can be very messy looking. If you look at, when they are spent or they get chewed on, they're a lot of work to stay uniform. I have not stayed up on these. I'm not going to be out here every day or every couple days pruning. I could choose to spend my time on that, but we have a lot of garden beds. We're busy people. I don't want to spend my time doing that. And then if you look at the petunias, you know, petunias definitely get messy. They definitely need a lot of deadheading to get clean. And I knew that was the case when I got these. I just got so excited because they're so pretty and they have these prolific blooms and they do great in the sun. But I will not be doing this again because it's a lot of work to keep them really looking optimal and beautiful. And I would much, much rather invest in perennials at this point. So my number one, or I should say my first thing that I would want to not do moving forward is put annuals in, even though they are beautiful. Number 2 is a good thing, a thing that I am liking. So this hydrangea is that strawberry, I don't know the exact name, but it's one of those sun hydrangeas that grows pretty tall. I want to say at least 6 or 7 feet. And I put it in last year. And the size of this bush, it is enormous. It has more than doubled in size. I would say at least 1.5 times the size since last year. And I am very, very happy with the investment. And if you just look at the colors, it is so beautiful. So it starts out with the white and then it turns pink. And I'm loving how big it's gotten. I'm loving how it has splayed out. The vision for this was to have some height in this area here. And if you look at the composition of this area, I really wanted to have a spike of height, which it'll get taller as it grows. And I want something to hide some of the things like that outlet on the wall, which is not attractive. And it's already doing that. It's actually exceeding my expectations. It really likes this spot. In fact, it's inspiring me so much. I want to get more hydrangeas all over the property because they are just so generous. They're such a wonderful plant. You get these amazing blooms. Did you know they can be cut flowers too? You can cut them, put them in vases. They change throughout the season. They're great foliage. They're handsome. They have just a lovely shape that you can trim as well if you want. They are everything that I am looking for in a garden bed or in a landscape setting. Moving on, we've got this part of the barn garden, which is a little vignette around the window. And it's not where I want it to be yet. Again, I've got the zinnias going on. They're pretty because I was able to fill, and I was able to kind of visually not draw as much attention to that outlet, which is nice. But the thing that I just don't quite know what to do with, and a lot of gardeners would say, Christina, that's a weed. The morning glory. And these morning glories are very special. They were my grandma's favorite plant, and they actually reseed themselves. They're not technically a perennial, but they're very good at reseeding themselves. So they almost act like one. And they're beautiful. They really are a beautiful plant, but they are extremely aggressive. A lot of gardeners consider them to be, frankly, a weed. And you can see why. Underneath this pile of vine, there's actually 3 trellises, and every year it topples it over, and it's about to topple. If you look at this, I'm going to zoom out. It becomes this monster of plant mass. And if I come back here against the wall, you can see where the heck is the trellis. Here's part of the trellis. It is going to topple over because there's so much weight and mass. Look at all that. It is insane. And this happened last year. It came out one morning and in the fall, and it was just on the ground. The whole thing went horizontal. Whoop. So I'm trying to figure out a different solution because number one, it gets out of control, and it doesn't really look the way I want it to look. I don't think it's as beautiful as it could be. Now, don't get me wrong, the blooms are really pretty. The other thing about morning glories is they're really just a bunch of foliage throughout most of the season because they don't bloom right away, and they only bloom in the morning. So, these blooms are going to be gone here within a matter of hours, and then I've just got this big pile of leaves and they're just not inspiring to me. So what I want to do is still keep them on the property because they are special to me. But find a dedicated place where A, they're not going to topple over a trellis. B, they're going to look more aesthetically beautiful. See, they've taken over this pot. I have a standing pot here with geraniums, and it's just like almost suffocating them. Like, oh, there's some mezuvine hidden here. I haven't had a chance to trim it back. I did not tidy this garden for this video for the purposes of sharing, you know, what's working and not working, and I frankly haven't gotten to it. Speaking of that, we've also got this really cute moose sculpture here. It's also hidden. There's a pot hidden in here too that got overgrown. All right, moving to this section, I did decide to try Dahlias, and I added heliopsis to the mix this year. So I'm adding some new things and trying some new ideas. I am surprised that this Dahlia is doing so darn well, because it has been such a rough season with the dry drought conditions for so long. I mean, they were just barely moving along. I got two more over here by the wagon wheels. And finally a bloom. Look at this. Just this morning. Good morning, darling. Isn't that gorgeous? This bush was prolific last year. It had tons of these red blooms, just the most beautiful scarlet color. And it came back. So I'm very, very excited because this tuber overwintered with me very well. They don't always do that. It's kind of a tricky process if you haven't done that, if you're not already familiar. And I'm so happy that it came back. It was very vigorous last year, and it's looking incredibly good and vigorous this year. I mean, just look at this massive growth and all of the little buds that are about to come. So I'm really, really happy. And this season, I don't know if any of you are running into this too, but I think this season's been really, really hard for Dahlias. They just have struggled with the dryness. And maybe there's other factors too, but all of mine have just looked like crap until about now. Now I'm getting some blooms coming in this week. This bush probably looks the best of all of them. And this one has actually spread out since I cut down. I'm trying to find where I cut it. Actually, I don't see, Well, usually what I do, I'm just not finding it, is I'll cut down the first center stem, and when it gets about 12 inches tall so that it has a wider spread. A new perennial investment that I'm trying this year is dianthus. So these are ones that I bought at Home Depot, and they looked really good. They're the red garnet. Oh, someone's eating on this one. Look at that. Holy cow. Like, this is nibbled. This is all nibbled. I'm surprised because they're supposed to be deer and rabbit resistant. But they look really good overall as plants. And I love the silvery blue hue to that foliage. And I just keep kind of pinching things back when I get a chance to keep them deadheaded. And it looks like I've got more blooms coming, which is really lovely. These dianthus are ones that I grew from seed inside. So they're just slightly different than that group over there we were just looking at. And I'm really happy with these. They have this lovely shape to them and height. So they have a different shape. They're more tall and airy than those little mounded ones we just looked at. And these have like a red to pink sort of color. I'm trying to get red. And then this white is in the mix somehow. I mean, again, I was growing red ones in the seeds, but you never know what you're going to get. So I'm really loving the perennials overall because they're such a lovely investment. These started so strong their first season here from seed that I'm feeling really optimistic, you know, for what they're going to do next year. I expect them to overwinter really well because they're totally good for this zone. And then they are next to the, gosh, this has a million names. Sundrop, Primrose, Buttercup, These are the ones that have the big, well, they're about this big to this big, depends on how big the plant gets, yellow buttercup blooms. And they usually have another flush of blooms near the fall. So I'm getting excited for these to do their thing again. They bloomed in the spring, which was lovely. These have been in my family's gardens for years and years. They spread really well. You can see they've already dropped seeds and they've got new growth here. And then you can split them and move them. They're very vigorous. Very, very happy with these plants. Talk about heliopsis. I am starting to really get into them. They're like a false sunflower. Mine look like crap right now, so I don't have a good specimen for you. This is the closest I have, and it really doesn't look good. But if you imagine this is like a little tiny sunflower bloom. Gosh, I can't even deadhead that easily with my hand here. They are beautiful as a plant. You just have to trust me or look it up. I've got, I want to say like 7 of them at a garden center because they are a perennial. So they will come back every year. And what I did is put a couple in the ground here and here. So excuse the weeds. I pull that away. And so this one, what's really funny I'm noticing about the heliopsis is they were very upset when I transplanted them. They did not want to be here. And you know, to their credit, this is a very harsh garden. There is a lot of sun and heat going on here. It's really, really a tough environment. So they didn't take too well, but they are coming back on their own terms. And I expect them to be a pretty hard-working plant. So if you look at this, that is new growth. So this was a beautiful, like 2-foot tall plant, and it just crapped out of me. So I'm throwing away all of the dead pieces, but it's coming back on its own terms. It's saying, you let me do what I want to do the way I want to do it. And I'm like, okay, you do you. More heliopsis right in here. Did the same thing here where they crapped out of me. You can see these plants are just really mad. This plant is really mad at me. But there's nice growth on this piece. And at the bottom, there's some nice growth. So they're going to come back. I can tell they're going to come back. I have faith. This is also a heliopsis. It's got green here. So I do think it's going to come back on its own terms. They're just mad. So we'll give it time. I'll show you one other set of them. So over here on the end of the barn garden, this is another heliopsis. So there's still, there's more foliage on this one still remaining, but you can see how upset the plant is. And there's another one here. Again, new growth. So feeling really good about them. They just need time and space. And then I think next year is going to be a really exciting season. The idea with the heliopsis in these different places, so they're right there, and right there, deliberately scattered, is to bring pops of yellow that are prolific and that come back every year. And I don't have to keep planting sunflowers all the time. Sunflowers are fun, but they're work. And this one, in fact, I did not plant because I was lazy. I was like, I'm not going to plant sunflowers. And this was a volunteer. So isn't that a lovely gift? What a blessing. And now it is in this full bloom with all of these gorgeous blossoms going on. So I'm grateful for this one. Let's talk about this last section of the barn garden. So these are plants that I brought over from Grandma and Grandpa's garden when they went to heaven. Wanted to make sure to save these plants as, you know, a special memory and memoir to them. So these phlox are giant now. I mean, they're at least 4 feet tall. Very, very happy with their height. I'm not a huge fan of the pink. If you've heard me talk about that before, I just don't dig pink. But I really admire the rigor of these plants. I love the height on them. So I might end up moving them to a different location where I'm looking for height and blooms that the color won't bother me so much. So I'm not going to get rid of them. I just think they could be better utilized somewhere else. Now that said, looking at the composition of this space, I do feel like I want height here. I'm craving height because we have some visual height here. I'll have to figure out what I'm going to do with that because that's a temporary annual. And then I want height here as well as it relates to those wagon wheels. I just don't know what I'm going to do yet. I might put in a tall trellis-like item. I'm considering honeysuckle vine, which has orange blooms, and those have done incredibly well in very arid heat situations on our land. Also, if you have ideas, let me know. I just need something that really can work hard in the sun. And I want orange to really tie in the color palette more. I don't have a lot of orange going on here, and I'm looking for those primary colors. This is a sea of stunning red bee balm. It looks tired. It looks ratty because it is spent. I think it has some downy mildew on it too. I am not going to treat for that. I'm not going to put that level of effort into maintaining. It is what it is. And they have been gorgeous and blooming for over a month. So I am just very happy with them. I'm grateful for them. I think they're perfect. They're stunning. Other ones that are just a slightly different color, they're like a fuchsia purple, and added them over here to complement so that it kind of carries your eye over. We got some repetition in the design. I am loving how this vignette is starting to come together because there was nothing here. It was just bare and naked. The door was just a very pale color that had kind of gotten washed out. So adding these gorgeous pops of color and softness with the plants just feels very, very good. So we've got the orange. We've got different things coming up naturally to fill in this space and give it a lot of grace. I love this vignette because you've got the charming fence line and some natural height opportunity here for the eye to go up. So starting to invest in the bee balm. I've also got in here some more dianthus coming in that I planted. There's a mess here of other annuals and weeds that I've got to clean up. So I'm not going to keep the annuals next year. I had thrown a random zinnia in. It just feels too messy to me right now. Now coming around the front, I just want to show the other little tidbit here. So on the left side of the front door, we have Melman's part of the garden. Melman is our awesome giraffe. He's so cool. I got him at an antique art fair thing. I absolutely love him. His little toolbox is his body. I love giraffes and I just think he's great. So he graces this part of the garden. And again, I have a lot of annuals going on. All these white blooms are just annuals. They won't be around next year. They are pretty for now. I like the fullness of them. But honestly, this part of the garden has no long-term direction. It is a hot mess, actually. So I've got to figure out what I'm going to do here. Again, what kind of perennials? What do I want to invest in? I'm also wanting height because this is a really cool statement area. I mean, you've got the sign and it's a way to kind of introduce the idea of the garden and the barn. Craving, like, is there some height here to relate to Melman and the sign and like that door? Maybe there's a little bit more height here that's not quite as tall, so it staggers and it carries your eye down. And then what do I want to do, to tier interest within the bed itself, to create fullness here. And it's got a little bit of height. There's a little bit of a slope up, which is kind of fun and interesting. So I have to figure out what I want to do. I've even got containers that are buried in here. They just got absolutely fried this summer. And same here with this one. But I mean, really cute stuff. Like we've got our John Deere planter, our planter. And we do have some Dahlias though, and did want to show them off because they are really pretty. So again, I got to prune back. Not been able to clean this bed up, so excuse the mess, but these are actually doing better than I thought because this garden does not get a lot of water. Again, really harsh conditions. My guess is because this has been surrounded by the mass of zinnias, is it's getting a little bit of like shade or coolness, if you will, a little bit of insulation, along with the fact that we finally got some rain the last few weeks from Mother Nature. So it's doing surprisingly well. It's got some nice mass and blooms coming in. So I'm actually surprised. Here we've got one more dahlia that I put in. It's getting really big. And I trimmed this down. You can see that little cutting there. So this one's bushing out really nicely. Look at that. We've got a bloom on the way. That's very exciting. And I don't even remember what color this is supposed to be. It looks like it might be a red, just based on these petals here. She is my garden buddy, always out gardening with me. So overall, I am very excited about the barn garden. It's just got a long way to go, a lot of opportunity, and I am just so excited to be able to play with it and try new things.